Onwards for part 26 of our History of War campaigns. I told you last week that new major losses in action were coming. You will see them today. I'm the Archivist, follow me. 645 BC, Arabs, Elamites, and Arabians, after all the disorders of the previous video, are forced back into Ashurbanipal of Assyria's empire. Maybe the great lord submits Subiti, ancient Zoba, here too. And here he is, the great Ashurbanipal, hunting a lion. Yeah. The following year, Sardis, capital of Lydia in central Anatolia, is taken by Lugdamis, Cimmerian king, whose raids coming from the northeast reach as far as the Greek cities of Ionia over here. And we travel a little bit for 643. In China, Huan of Qi, the first hegemon of this land, dies. One Duke Xiang, different from other Xiangs we mentioned elsewhere, of the state of Song, is briefly hegemon after him, strongly contested by Zheng and the Shu. The Zheng is nearby, but the Shu is way more southwestward. The new Duke of Qi in the east, Xiao, can't get on top either. Back in the west, in Rome. In 640 ends the reign of Tullus Hostilius, and Encus Martius takes his succession. He must face aggressions of Ladins from the coast, whom, defeated, are made Roman citizens, like the Albans earlier on. Encus Martius would also have waged a long but successful war against the city of Politorium. It seems that the Romans also had to defend against Fidenae, Sabine city, Veii, Etruscan, so in northern Italy, and the people of the Volsci, established southward. While this time, the Cimmerian king Dugdamis is defeated and killed in the canyons of the Taurus Mountains by the Assyrians, come to the rescue of Ardis II of Lydia. This allows, in the upcoming years, Ardis II to consolidate his kingdom located here in Anatolia, taking Priene but failing against Miletus. Fightings will continue between Lydia and Ionia, the region of the Greek cities on the coast. After this, Ashurbanipal of Assyria's army marches far to the southeast to wreak havoc 2 months long in Elam, in nowadays southwestern Iran, thus punishing some Elamite incursions in the east of his empire. During the Elamite taming, Dur Untash is destroyed. You see here captives of ruined Elam under Assyrian surveillance on a reed boat. Next, in 638 in China, brief hegemon Xiang of Song is defeated in a campaign against the Zheng nearby that is backed by the Shu of the south. The Shu, with the advantage of number, rush to help the Zheng, and at the Battle of the Hongshu River, they are well helped by the fact that Xian decides to let them finish crossing the river to fight an honorable battle. Had he charged early, following the advice of one of his lieutenants, he could have easily defeated them. But no, he's injured and will die the following year, replaced by his son Cheng, new Duke of Song. A few years later, in 635 BC, the eastern Zhou king Xiang is expelled from the throne by his brother, Prince Dai. Remember that the Zhou were once ago the very dominant dynasty in China. Not anymore. As you can see, the Zhou is really a moribund dynasty, as I said. Just a little more on China. In 633, Duke Wen of Jin, here is the Jin, defeats the Shu coming from the south and their allies as they try to invade the Song. Wars are not even close to stopping between these. And all the while, Duke Wen is also called to aid poor dethroned Xiang of the Zhou, of course. Some sources say that it is this very year that Duke Wen of Jin has re-established Jiang on the throne of the Zhou, actually, having killed Dai, the usurper. In reward, Wen earns new lands in the central plain and becomes the third hegemon of China. More on him in a minute. The same year, 633, is possibly that of the undoing of King Phraates of the Medes in combat against Ashurbanipal of Assyria. Maybe his son Cyaxares must withdraw, cancelling an attack towards Nineveh in Assyria. In any event, the Medes have the displeased to see Scythians, allies of the Assyrians and coming from the north, maybe here or here, established themselves in Media. Magius or Magius is king of these Scythians, and it is said that his father Batatua would have been, on the contrary, an adversary of the Assyrians, the Medes, and the author of a grandiose raid that would have reached the borders of Egypt. Whoa! Ascalon, at least on the coastline of Phoenicia, seems to have indeed suffered from a Scythian raid around this time. So, back to the present, or 633 BC if you will. As Magius the Scythian settles in parts of Media, he defeats Cyaxares the Mede north of Lake Ormia, over here actually. Cyaxares is apparently also at odds, shortly after, against the Manea, a little-known kingdom south of Lake Ormia. And to close this year, a word about the Persians, cousins of the Medes, let's say, that are now settled around Anshan, southeast of Media and Elam, and under Nebulus Cyrus I. They maybe take advantage of their neighbor difficulties to slightly expand northwestward. Moving on to 632, back to Duke Wen of Jin, the hegemon. Helped by the Song, the Qi, and the Qin, he fights the Battle of Chengpu over here against King Cheng of the Shu. And this battle is very interesting. In it, Duke Wen of Jin, notably assisted by Mu of Qin, Duke considered as one of the 5 hegemons, aligns close to 700 war chariots, apparently all pulled by 4 horses. The opposing army of King Chen of Shu has 300. Wen attacks the wings of King Cheng, rapidly breaking the right thanks to Jin General Xu Chen's leadership and his chariots displaying tiger hides. The left is tougher though, and a feint retreat is necessary to lure the Shu into a reckless pursuit. Jin chariots actually reform behind the cover of a dust cloud produced by Jin General Luanzi's chariots dragging 3 branches. The counterattack crushes the Shu elements and its flanks broken, their entire army routs after losing a good third of its war engines. Many of Shu's allies rally Wen of Jin, whom will die in 628, 4 years later. Know that Chinese chariots could be pulled by 2 to 4 horses with as many men on board. At the end of the spring and autumn period, they would be seriously challenged by mounted cavalry, notably that of outer barbarians. Heading back west of Eurasia, around 630 BC, Sadeates of Lydia, successor of Ardys II, starts a 12-year war against Miletus, Ionian city. He scores at least 2 victories in open field against the Ionians, but can conquer the city. His successor, Alyattes II, will probably have to end this conflict in his stead around 620. Or later, according to other sources. But maybe they talk about another later conflict until 604 BC. What's for sure is that Miletus kept its independence. Still around 630, tyrant of Megara, Theagenes, who got to power in this city that is located east of Corinth, between Corinth and Athens. This Theagenes, who got to power by supporting the poor against the rich, is master of a city that's recently expanded its influence over its near region, then called Megarid. It was under Corinth's influence beforehand. The Megarians, from here, we found numerous colonies like Chalcedon and Byzantium, of course, maybe founded in 657 actually, and by one Byzus. Megarians will also found other cities in Sicily. Slightly later ends the long reign of Cypselus, tyrant of Corinth itself. Since 657, he campaigned against Corcyra, this island, and Argos, nearby in northeastern Peloponnese. But he failed to submit Corcyra, Corfu today. It is this year, 627, that Corinthian and Corcyran settlers found Epidamnus on the eastern coast of the Adriatic Sea, doubtless after some frictions with the local Illyrians. Then, in 626 BC, Nabopolassar of uncertain origin inflicts a serious wound upon the Assyrian Empire after the death of Ashurbanipal and his brother Kandalanu of Babylonia. Nabopolassar, after a palace revolt similar to an almost concurrent one in Syria, gets to the throne of Babylonia, maybe in November. Assyrian troops are expelled from Babylonia. Maybe Nabopolassar will launch a campaign against Urartu at some point of his reign in the mountains of Bit Hanunia. Far north of this, in 625, the Scythians, these master-mounted archers and lancers, the latter able of wedge formations to charge with their 4-meter-long weapons, held with both hands, once the enemy is diminished by volley of arrows, well, they are repulsed from Media by its king Cyaxares. Other northern people could have been defeated then, along with the Scythians. Scythian king Madius perishes in the fightings, or in the following decade, around 615, assassinated. It seems that the Medes are a tough nut to crack, and here was a Scythian archer on an Attic plate, even though Scythians were mostly mounted combatants. Around the same time, the tyrant of Rhegion, or Rhegium, city facing Sicily, its tyrant, Anaxilas I, fortifies his harbor against attacks of Tyrrhenian pirates, probably Etruscans then. A few years later, reigns Philip I of Macedon. He must defend his western lands against Illyrian aggressions, maybe Thracians too. The Illyrian settled on the eastern coast of the Adriatic Sea at the start of the century after being pushed westward by Thracians and Paeonians, will possibly in the end be the doom of Philip around 600 BC. In 618 BC, end of the long war between Lydia and Miletus, thanks to a mediating of Periander, tyrant of Corinth. And we've got a lot for 616 now. First, Nabopolassar of Babylon attacks the Assyrians heading up the course of the Euphrates River. While this time, Cyaxares, the Mede, submits the Mania south of Lake Urmia. More on these two conquerors later. And we of course have the start of the reign in Rome of its fifth king, Tarquinius the Elder, an Etruscan. It is probably after several Etruscan expeditions that they succeeded in imposing a king of theirs in the Latin city to succeed to Ancus Martius. Proof of the unstable relations at that time, Tarquinius the Etruscan also fought against the Sabines and other Etruscans. There was conflicts against the cities of Appiolae, Crustumerium, Veii, Nomentum, Colace, Fidenae, Cameria, and other minor ones. Tarquinius knew his way through sieges and battles. Hoplite fashion, the Romans may be swapping a previous rectangular shield for a new, round aspis or shield at that time. Tarquinius the Elder erected a defensive wall around Rome. And this is it for Rome for now. Do you have any idea that Etruscans had been kings of Rome early on in its history? Okay, so in 615 BC, Nabopolassar of Babylon now launches a full-scale invasion of Assyria. This time, he fails at taking Ashur and withdraws to Tikrit. But Cyaxares the Mede is also at the Assyrians. He takes Rafah from them and destroys Nudzi, slightly southwest of it, taking advantage of the Babylonian diversion, shall we say. And in 614, this is it. Ashur, former capital of Assyria, is taken and sacked by the Medes of Cyaxares. Leaderless since the bloods following the death of Ashurbanipal, the Assyrians are almost on their knees. Fortunately for them, the Medes don't strike the killing blow for now. And here is a view of once beautiful Ashur or Assur. It is only 2 years later, so it seems, that kings Cyaxares of the Medes and Nabopolassar of Babylonia unite against the Assyrians, taking Nimrod, Dur-Sharrukin, and, in August, Nineveh, the capital of Assyria on the Tigris River, after 3 months of siege. The inhabitants are massacred or deported. Maybe, it is uncertain, the city had already been approached by Mede, Babylonian, and Susa, from here contingents, in 633 and 625. But what's for sure right now is that the Assyrian Empire is crumbling. Its king, Sinshar-Ishkun, is probably killed. His relief, one of his war masters, Ashurbanipal II, boxes himself in Haran, northwest of Nineveh. It is very possible that some Scythians and Cimmerians, if they were still around at that time, helped the Medes and Babylonians by wreaking havoc in many parts of Assyria. But guess who's at the rescue of the Assyrians in 610? Necho II, Libyan pharaoh of the 26th dynasty of Egypt. Recently on the throne, he goes through Philistia, Canaan, Phoenicia, submitted for some time only, but his insufficient army is then repulsed from beyond the Euphrates by the Babylonians and their allies. In 609, then, it is Urartu of the discreet last rulers that's assaulted by the Medes and the Babylonians. Poor King Erimena of Urartu could in fact have been on the throne in recompense for a previous assistance to Cyaxares the Mede against the Assyrians. These rulers just seem to have no honor. In the same year, south of Urartu, during the spring or summer, a battle is given at Megiddo between the Egyptians and the Judeans. Pharaoh Necho II is again marching north to go help the Assyrians, and the army of Josias of Judah is putting itself in his way, with Babylonians of Nabopolassar. In the battle, Josias is killed by an arrow, his army routed, and Judah is annexed by Egypt. Pharaoh's army can continue its march northward. And, sometime later, Necho II manages to unite his forces with part of what remains of the once glorious Assyrian army. In the north of nowadays Assyria, they together manage to take Carchemish, but can't go farther than that to reach Haran, where Ashurbanipal II the Assyrian is besieged. Medes of Cyaxares, Babylonians of Nabopolassar, and Scythians vanquish the defenders of the city, and Ashurbanipal II is killed then, or shortly after, trying to retake the city. This is the end of the Assyrians. Rest in peace, Assyria, but wipe your tears away, folks, as in the next episode, while Babylon will be the dominant player in Middle East, Urartu will meet its end too. Thank you for leaving a like and a comment to help the channel grow. See you all next Friday.